Injuries, buys, our sweet Prince Nico Collins, Aiden. He's not on the slate this week, but the nonstop fantasy machine, it doesn't stop turning. And on today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we have the top, and I get this wrong every week, top 55 wide receivers for week 6 of the NFL season. I'm your host, Sean. I'm joined by my co-host, my good friend, my fellow knower of ball, Aiden Haller. Aiden, the Bears making a trip across the pond. How we feeling? You ready to wake up at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time to watch your Chicago Bears against the Jaguars this weekend?
Yeah, I kind of hate the London football, especially as a West Coast football fan, but pretty excited. Yeah, it was reported that so we flew out to London on Monday.
Smart.
The Jaguars decided they were going to wait it out until Hurricane Milton passed to fly out to London. So they're probably arriving like right around now. It was like the earliest they were going to leave was Thursday evening, Eastern Standard Time. So huge advantage there. But yeah, I'm excited. I think this is a game we should win, but we'll see, man. London football's funky. You never know what's going to happen. We're down a couple guys too, so we'll get into that as we talk about the Jags. But how you doing? Victory Friday. That's a new one. How we feeling after last night's game?
Yeah, so spoiler, we are recording this Friday morning, around 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The 49ers did not blow a 10-point lead to an NFC West rival, so that feels pretty good. George Kittle's good. Brock Purdy's back to throwing bad balls that become 80-yard touchdowns, and I missed those. I did. I missed the Deebo Samuel.
Those are classic.
80-yard, yeah, classic. Like, wow, that was like a Jimmy ball, but yep, baby, 80 yards to the house, and then brought through a couple absolute missiles in the red zone. Felt good. Felt good to watch Geno Smith turn into a pumpkin. He does it twice a year against the 49ers. I watch all these highlights of Geno Smith being an incredible quarterback, and then every time he plays the Niners, it's like, what is going on here? He has not beaten the Niners since he's been the quarterback of the Seahawks. Yeah, the last quarterback to beat Russell Wilson was the problem. It wasn't Pete Carroll. It was Russell Wilson. We could not beat him. The bad man is gone. He tortured me, and he now tortures everyone every time he speaks. So it's payback for what he did to me all those years in high school. But enough about the 49ers. We have got a good slate this week, I guess. You have some people here, and we're going to get into the rankings that I didn't expect to have so high. And it happens when you have 4 buys and injuries. You know, this landscape's always changing. It's always evolving. If you are new to our rankings episode, our format's pretty simple. I have ranked the top 55 wide receivers. I've broken them into 7 tiers. I'm going to go tier by tier, and I'm going to stop and kind of share some guys that I'm higher on and lower than on or lower on versus expert consensus rankings over Fantasy Pros. I'm going to put the rankings here in the show notes of the episode. So if you want to reference them, they're in a Google Sheet. Go ahead, take a look at them. I've got notes, and I've got a ton of different stuff on them. We have also unveiled earlier this month our RTM score, which is essentially just a weighted system that ranks a players. I don't know. How would you? It's like a weighted ranking system. It's a projection.
A couple of different kind of metrics in there to kind of rank them on a sliding scale.
Essentially, I'm taking a look at the team's implied team total rank from over what Vegas expects the team to do. I'm looking at their actual points per game production. I'm looking at their expected points production. And I'm also taking into account the team that they're playing in terms of how many points they're giving up to the position. So overall, I weight my ranking a little bit higher towards what Vegas thinks the team's going to do and what their usage is, because those are a little bit more predictive. You might have outlier performances on the other metrics. So trying to find consistency there. Aiden, before we jump in, though, I'm assuming that this is probably the first time some people have watched one of our shows. Maybe YouTube, shout out YouTube, suggested our video. If they're new to the channel, what should the good people do at home?
Yeah, kick up your feet. Enjoy the show. Sean so generously timestamps all the different tiers below. So even if you just want to jump around, kind of see what's going on in the different tiers, have a look. We link the sheet as well. Maybe you just want to take a look at Sean's brain, see what's going on with the sheet.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to look at my brain.
You don't want to get in there. I wouldn't recommend it, but we've got the sheet with you. We've got all the stats we're using. So enjoy the show. If if you guys feel so generous, give us a like, comment, subscribe, whatever you're feeling. But we're happy you're here. Enjoy the show. Hopefully we help you win some matchups this week.
That's the goal. We're trying to give you an edge. We want you to win. That's the most important thing here. All right. Tier 1. We got 6 guys. And I swear I'm not pandering, number 6, but we'll get there. Wide receivers 1 through 6 on the week. I've got Jamar Chase, wide receiver 1. AJ Brown, wide receiver 2. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown 4. Drake London 5. And DJ Moore 6. So I have a couple guys that I have a higher stance on this week. Again, you're starting all these guys confidently. 1, Jamar Chase. I have him at number 1. ECR has him at 2. This is just a dream run out for Jamar. Joe Burrow looks healthy. And the Cincinnati Bengals defense is bad. So they're just in shootouts. They're in shootouts, and Joe can push the ball downfield. This is ideally what you want here. And kind of an insane run out for Jamar and for T. We'll get to T a little bit later, but you got to be super excited if you drafted Jamar Chase. And you were a little worried about the whole holdout. Looking pretty good. Pretty good so far. AJ Brown, buff Batman, as Aiden would call him. He's back. This is a cake matchup against a Cleveland defense that basically halfway through every game just gives up because their quarterback's Deshaun Watson. My man, AJ Brown, was the wide receiver 1 before he got hurt. So I'm very excited to see him back in the fold. He is one of the most exciting players in all of football. I'm a little bit down on CeeDee Lamb. Nothing against CeeDee. The usage has been 19th best, and the production has been 20th best. You know this is coming, though. It was very similar last year, and then they had that 8-week run. It was like, oh my goodness. So, I think it's good that Jalen Tolbert and Jake Ferguson are kind of establishing themselves because it's going to, I think, open things up more for CeeDee in the future. But it's hard for me to really rank him number 1 at this point, considering what his production has been so far through the year. ARSB, set it and forget it. Drake London, you either die a hero or live to see Drake London be a weekly top 5 wide receiver play. Can't believe we got here, but we did. And then DJ Moore. Very high on DJ Moore this week. Even after his huge week in week 5, still is a positive candidate for regression. So I'll pause here, Aiden. Tier 1, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to make 3 quick notes. Welcome back, AJ. Like you said, super stoked to have this guy back. I think him and Smitty, I could see that Eagles passing tag going pretty crazy this week. So love him as a top 5 play, even as number 2. And then the bottom 2 guys here in this first tier, 2 guys that are trending up and trending up quickly, both with really advantageous matchups. Looking at Drake London, really nice run out the last couple of weeks. Massive 30-burger last week, back-to-back games with 10-plus targets, and playing a Carolina defense that just got absolutely diced up. So don't really care where the game is. I couldn't tell you if it's at home or away. I don't think it matters. That defense is terrible, and it's very banged up too. They got injuries across the line. I think in all 3 levels. I know they've got some D linemen and linebackers injured, but love the matchup there. And then DJ Moore, feels like the last 2 games we're starting to figure something out with Caleb. 3 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. 100 yards, 2 touchdowns last week against a Jacksonville secondary that has been the worst against pass catchers. So really excited for Drake London and the DJ Moore this week to kind of continue and give us a bit of an encore from last week.
I really like Drake London's usage. They're just putting him in the slot, and he's huge, gets separation. Doesn't do a ton after the catch per se, but I think he can do more than he's shown. And Atlanta's pass rate over expectation has just been absurd. Now, my only hesitation with Drake is that I would not be shocked if this was the Bijan Robinson game. We're going to highlight it a little bit more in the RB show. Doesn't mean that Drake can't get home, but we'll talk more about it. But that's setting up to be a pretty massive Bijan game.
Yeah.
Tier 2 here. Wide receivers 7 through 13. I've got Chris Godwin, wide receiver 7, Jayden Reed 8, Stefon Diggs 9, DK Metcalf 10, Malik Neighbors 11, DeVonta Smith 12, T Higgins 13. So really big on 2 guys in this tier here. I've got DeVonta Smith up 9 spots versus expert consensus rankings, and I have T Higgins up 5 spots. So these guys are wide receiver 2s on Fantasy Pros right now. I've got them essentially as wide receiver 1s, considering that Malik Neighbors just got ruled out. So yeah, Malik, get well. We miss you, man. So I've got DeVonta Smith here and T Higgins basically rounding out wide receiver 1s. So My thought on Smitty, he's top 10 in usage, top 11 in production. Now, some of that was weighted by the lack of A.J. Brown, but Smitty's going to see 8 to 9 targets, one of the more reliable receivers in fantasy right now. I think he has a nice game against Cleveland, great game environment. Everything is agreeing essentially across Smitty's profile. So you love to see that. And then T. Higgins, the usage has been insane. He's had better usage than Jamar Chase since he's came back. So I'm a T. Higgins hater, but you have to be pretty happy if you drafted Higgins. That is coming to fruition in terms of his peak impact in fantasy. I'll pause here, Aiden. Thoughts on tier 2?
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about T. Higgins. He's had 30 targets in his 3 weeks, and that includes just 6 in week 3. So we're 10 and 14 in the last 2 weeks. The usage has been really encouraging. To your point, if you're a T. Higgins and Jamar Chase owner, you've got to love it. These guys are going to score 30 points a week, and it's kind of a coin flip if they're going to win or lose because of their defense, which is chef's kiss for fantasy football. Really excited for DeVonta too. I know we talked about that with AJ, but I think it's a really good opportunity for both guys. And then I'm excited to see what Stefon Diggs does. I've got some more thoughts on Tank Dell as well, but someone's got to step up. CJ Stroud's going to continue to sling that thing. It's a matter of who's going to kind of carve out, the bigger slice of Nico Collins' kind of role in that offense. And I think it's pretty TBD. Like, my bet at this point is it's more of Stefon Diggs, but Tank Dell's really damn good too. So I think that's something to keep an eye on this week in terms of how that's divvied up.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the Houston offense shakes out, where those targets go. We could see the return of Joe Mixon, so they could be a little bit more run heavy in week 6.
Yeah, he was practicing in full pads yesterday.
He was. We'll talk a little bit more of that in the running back show. And then Chris Godwin, been relatively quiet the past few weeks. Mike Evans is going to get shadow coverage from Marshawn Lattimore, which always is fireworks. Always fireworks. But I do think that opens things up for Godwin. Tier 3 here. Wide receivers 14 through 20. I've got Marvin Harrison at 14, Brandon Aiyuk at 15, Garrett Wilson at 16, Diontae Johnson 17, Zay Flowers 18, Terry McLaurin 19, Mike Evans 20. Kind of down on everyone in this tier because I moved DeVonta Smith and T. Higgins up. That's just kind of how it works. I'd take a call-outs. Garrett Wilson, top 3 usage in the league with wide receiver 2 production. Stop me if you've heard that one before. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Garrett Wilson's going to continue to get good usage and bad production, it seems, which is just kind of hilarious. I think Zay Flowers is a borderline must start against Washington as well. Baltimore, number 1 implied team total rank this week from Vegas. Top 18 usage. Yeah. Top 18 usage so far for Flowers. Washington is surrendering the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And then inversely, Terry McLaurin in this game, Baltimore is giving up the 3rd most points to wide receivers. This is just a shootout, in my opinion. Both of these defenses have beatable secondaries. Washington wants to run the ball, but Baltimore's very good against the run, so it's kind of a pass funnel. So I'll be very interested to see these pass catchers in particular for Washington. So I really like both Flowers and McLaurin. I'll pause here, Aiden. Anything on tier 3? Anyone speaking your language?
Yeah. Well, really excited for Marvin Harrison Jr. I think we kind of came back down to earth with his kind of like pretty impressive 3-week stretch where he went over 15 points in all of those games. The Green Bay secondary is definitely gettable. Kyler Murray's playing, some of the best football of his career. So I like your notes are perfect. Like, really nice get right spot for him. And then Terry McLaurin, another guy you mentioned here. It's just really nice to watch him play with a good quarterback. It just feels like
it's awesome.
It was like DJ Moore in Carolina, what Terry was for the first few years of his career, and it's like he's got a quarterback that can throw him the ball, every level of his route tree. So I like that one. I think that game is going to be really fun for fantasy players. So you're firing up all your big dogs in that matchup. So those are the 2 guys here I'm most excited about.
The big dogs, yeah. This is an interesting tier. I think Diontae too is in a good spot for a little bit more positive regression. Atlanta's been beatable in terms of a secondary, but yeah, I like Marvin Harrison. He's got top 20 usage, top 28 production. You probably want more. It is a good get right spot. It's a good game environment. So I'm excited to see Maserati Marv have a nice game. It'd be pretty sweet. All right, tier 4. I've got wide receivers 21 to 28. 21 Darnell Mooney, 22 Wan'Dale Robinson, 23 Josh Downs, 24 Brian Thomas, 25 Chris Olave, 26 Deebo Samuel, 27 Jameson Williams, 28 Rashid Shaheed. So this tier, I've definitely made some stands. So there's a lot that is different in this tier of wide receiver than is against the consensus on Fantasy Pros. So 1, I'm high on the Moon Man. He has an absurd role. Top 15 in expected fantasy points production. He's going up against a beatable Carolina secondary. And, Atlanta has the 3rd highest team in team point total, implied team total this week. So it's just all green across the board essentially here for Darnell. Big on Wan'Dale. The scam continues. Malik is going to be out. Cincinnati's beatable. Daniel Jones is playing pretty good ball. And Wan'Dale has top 17 usage right now. So 29th in production, 17th in usage, 22 on the week. I feel like it's a good sweet spot for him. I'm very high on Josh Downs. Now, Josh Downs has not practiced yet. Have they started? I know Indy practices early, so we get those reports. Is Downs practicing today? Has there been a report?
I haven't seen anything personally.
If Downs does play this week, I think he's a borderline must start. Even though it's a rough matchup from time to time against the Tennessee Titans secondary. But man, I just like Josh Downs is really good. He's getting like a 30% target share right now. You'd have to put him in the lineup. No injury news yet. So if he comes out and gets a limited or full, you're good to go. Josh Downs is in your lineup, in my opinion. We got to talk to Saints wide receivers because I'm a little low on Olave.
Yeah, what do we do here?
I'm a little low on Olave, and I'm higher on Shaheed. So I don't know what Spencer Rattler is going to mean for this offense. Now, Spencer Rattler has a great arm, and he's not afraid to use it. But he's a rookie. He's never started. And to say his performance in college was choppy and volatile would be an understatement.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Rashid Shaheed benefits greatly from this rapport with Derek Carr, where Derek Carr does his before the snap, he's like, I'm going to throw it deep. And Rashid Shaheed's really good at catching the ball deep. So that relationship's worked. You have Spencer Rattler coming out and saying, I'm going to get Chris Olave the ball as much as possible. So I don't know. I honestly don't know how this is going to shake out in terms of Rattler feeding Olave or Shaheed. Because of that, I'm bringing them closer together in the rankings. I think you got to start them if you have them, right? They're 2 really good plays, in my opinion. Tampa Bay's secondary has not been good, right? So
no, they've been banged up pretty much all year, it feels like.
So I'm not quite sure how this shakes out. Do you have an opinion on the Saints pass catchers, Aiden?
Yeah, I think I'd personally lean Olave. Like if I'm a rookie QB, I'm probably leaning on my stud. Chris Olave's got a far more complete route tree. I think, that's no secret when you compare the two. But also it's like Rashid's always one deep ball away. Like I got Shaheeded last week. It's 0 to 15 pretty quick with that guy. So I don't know.
I got Shaheeded as well. Oh, and hate to interrupt. Josh Downs seen stretching ahead of practice.
Oh, that's big. Okay.
Yeah, seen stretching ahead of practice.
So I'd probably put my money on Olave being the safer play. I think just like the volume is going to help him in terms of his floor, but you never know what's going to happen with Shaheed.
I got Jameson and Shaheed right next to each other. 2 of these guys. These guys have been my muses all year. They're like the same player.
One other guy I do want to flag here, though, is Brian Thomas Jr. The Bears are going to be without 2 of their 4 starters in the secondary, which is, a big break for a really strong unit. So Tyreek Stevenson is doubtful. Doesn't look like he's going to play. Jaquan Brisker's already been ruled out. And BTJ's just looked awesome, dude. Don't be surprised. Unless he's getting the shadow coverage by Jaylen, which typically doesn't mirror anyone. He could hit home on a deep ball or 2, but yeah, better than it looks like matchup on paper.
Okay, that's good to know. And the London games are always such a wild card.
They're so weird. Like you have no idea what's going to happen. Like it's over in Tottenham. And like no idea.
You got to start Brian Thomas if you have Brian Thomas. You're not benching BTJ.
He's a must start.
You're not.
Him
and
Christian Kirk are are back in must starts, which we'll get to Kirk here in the next one. But no, they're both must starts at this point.
All right, tier 5 here. I've got wide receivers 29 to 36. 29, I've got Jaxon, Smith-Njigba. 30, Dontayvion, Wicks. 31, Amari Cooper. 32, George Pickens. 33, Tank Dell. 34, Christian Kirk. 35, Jakobi Meyers. And 36, Calvin Ridley. I know JSN played last night, but can we get him some more targets, man? Like Gino,
Please.
They just force feed DK. I mean, I get it. He's DK Metcalf, but I will say JSN had multiple end zone targets in this game. His expected fantasy points are going to be awesome when we pull him up next week.
So
we'll
almost
see.
had a touchdown on 2 different drives. Yeah, that was
he did.
Bad.
Okay,
bad
so
balls.
I can't dunk on Gino again. They wrote him off, but he didn't write back. Okay, so Dontayvion Wicks, I've got him 2 spots ahead of ECR. I wanted to move him higher, but that's cope. All right. If it doesn't happen this week, you wasted your fab for nothing. The Christian Watson news is a disaster. So he did not have a high ankle sprain. He had a standard ankle sprain. I will say, though, that when guys sprain their ankles, they usually come back and pull a groin, injure a hamstring. Like, it's very common. So I would not drop Dontayvion Wicks, right, by any means, if Christian Watson comes back. However, Wicks actually had great usage. He led the team in targets last week. For some reason, he just couldn't hit home. And that was a super run-heavy Green Bay game.
It sucked.
You can beat this Arizona secondary, but I just fear that the game plan is going to be a Josh Jacobs game plan. They're just going to try and run the ball because I think LaFleur's like, my run game is nasty and Jordan Love's good, but Jordan Love's a chaos merchant a little bit. So like sometimes if you can just...
And he's still not 100%.
No, he's not. You can slow it down a little bit. But yeah, man, it's a great game environment. I think Wicks, you got to start him, but it's so weird. Is Romeo Doubs just the guy who stirs the drink? Does he just run all the clear out routes and it opens up everything for everyone else? Like, is that just how it works?
He's just your clear out X, bro. He's just your clear out. Like, no wonder he's skipping practices. He wants to run a real route.
He saw Dontayvion Wicks get the end zone targets, and he's like, "I'm not fucking doing this." Did you see the video of Matt LaFleur saying what's good to all his players, and he was like chopping it up with Christian Watson? I think he was talking to another receiver, and he just like him and Dobbs just don't even look at each other. It was like,
yeah, that's not great. That's not great.
But you know who loves Dobbs?
Jordan Love.
Jordan loves Dobbs for sure.
Jordan loves Dobbs for sure. But
it's like you got to play Wicks. But yeah, I mean this is levels of like Jover that we haven't seen before. If you blew your fab on Wicks, like so I blew all of it.
I'm nervous.
I blew all of it to get Wicks.
I
blew all of it, man. But yeah, I'm worried about Wicks, but this is a good matchup. You should play him if you have him. We got to talk about George Pickens.
It's so bad. It's bad.
I drafted George Pickens in a league, much to my chagrin. He was just the best pick on the board. No one wanted to take him. He's like in the 5th round. It was a good pick. And I have now followed the saga a little too closely, and it's just deja vu, dude. It's just the same shit that we've been doing, right? It's deja vu on 2 fronts. One, for some reason, we have a very disgruntled wide receiver in Pittsburgh. I've drafted Diontae Johnson for years. I know how this shit goes, okay? 2, we now have an offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith who's at the podium bragging about how he takes his best players off the field. Hey, you guys know my premium players. I took Derrick Henry off the field on 3rd down. I didn't play A.J. Brown a lot at first. Why are you bragging about not playing these guys? Like, what the fuck is your deal, dude? Like, what the fuck? I don't get it, dude. So again, we're back here with George Pickens, where his usage is fine, his production isn't that great. He's a positive regression candidate against a Raiders defense that you should hope that they could score on. But man, it's kind of a disaster here for Pickens, but you probably have to play him against the Raiders. Yeah. I'll pause here. If you have Pickens thoughts, if you have Wicks thoughts, if you have any thoughts on the rest of these guys in this tier.
Yeah, quick Pickens thought. It's not trending in a good direction. He played just over 50% of the snaps last week.
How did it turn out?
Visibly
did
jogging.
They win?
No, but I think Mike Tomlin's such a hardo. Like, he's borderline fine with that. Like, he's fine with like making a statement. He's out here jogging routes. He's on, like this, like, 3rd, 4th read side of the field. It's awful. Like, Mike Tomlin's not going to take that. I do want to highlight Tank Dell. I know we already talked about Steph Diggs, but I would probably have him even higher than this. I'd be shocked if Tank Dell's not a top 30 play this week. I think he really has no choice at this point but to play better and to be a bigger part of this passing offense. Without Nico, the ball's got to go somewhere. And I don't think we're going to have 15 targets for Stefon Diggs. So really excited to see him step up. And then Amari Cooper. Man, great matchup, but we've got to get Deshaun Watson on the bench. There's no other way to put it. Like, this passing offense would be so much fun with Jameis Winston. So, yeah, I like Amari. I think he probably hits home. Like the matchup is just so good.
Great. My notes are great usage, great matchup. Still don't want to start him.
Yeah,
that's my notes.
Still not doing it
for Amari Cooper. I get it. I mean, I get it. It's a juicy matchup for Cooper, and the usage is incredible. He's got top 10 usage. He's just a screaming regression candidate. But what regression doesn't factor in is Deshaun Watson. Unfortunately,
yeah,
I don't have a Deshaun Watson multiplier right now in the RTM score. But
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Last guy here is Calvin Ridley. They're talking about feeding Calvin Ridley targets. That's been a big thing from Brian Callahan this week. So it could be a squeaky wheel narrative game for the Titans coming out of their bye. So something to keep in mind here with Calvin Ridley. Last two tiers here before we get out of here. Tier 6, I've got wide receivers 37 through 45. I've got Jalen Tolbert, Alec Pierce, Romeo Doubs, Tyler Lockett, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey, DeAndre Hopkins, and Courtland Sutton. Pretty big stands here on Alec Pierce and Romeo Doubs. Alec Pierce, if Josh Downs is banged up, is like the de facto wide receiver 1, even with Pittman out. I think Pierce is a very interesting play, in my opinion. But I definitely think he's worth monitoring. Doubs, again, first game back after complaining about getting targets. Jordan Love loves him. Wouldn't be that shocked if we got some love to Romeo. Like at the end, would you? If he had a bunch of deep shots to Romeo, I would not be surprised if that happens in this game. Big shout out to Jalen Tolbert. I've got him 4 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. This is a beatable secondary with Detroit. They play in shootouts. Dallas probably is going to go down big because they can't stop the run and they're going to need to throw the shit out of the ball. So Tolbert's a really interesting play this week, in my opinion. And then lastly, these Bears wide receivers, Dunze and Keenan Allen. I don't know what to do with them.
I don't know.
Because this offense clearly has demonstrated that game to game, it can support a spike week from a receiver. We've had a big Cole Kmet game. We've had a big Rome Odunze game, and we've had 2 big DJ Moore games. We have yet to see 2 guys do it in the same game. So if I'm high on DJ Moore, I don't know how high I'm going to get on these other 2 guys. That's my thought process with the Bears receivers right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with them. I'd really like to see Keenan Allen get more involved, especially as a guy that has a relatively low ADOT. It's pretty surprising. Like, he hasn't scored 7 points yet in a game this season. So I do think if this game is close, there is the opportunity for more than one guy to be supported here. But if for whatever reason Chicago was to go up early and kind of like lean on the run here, and to your point, it does seem hard that like we're gonna have 2 guys pop. So I think best case here is we've got a close game in London, and at that point, I do see the opportunity for 2 guys to pop, given how putrid this Jacksonville passing defense is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good spot on paper. I would love to see. I'd love to see Caleb in this offense support too. I guess they have. Yeah. I guess like it's been Swift plus another guy, but it's been 2. I haven't seen like 2 receivers yet go off. A receiver and a tight end go off.
3 weeks now that we've seen the big 3 play, and I really only call it 2 weeks, as week 1, like they didn't really all see the field together. So it's been 2 weeks that we've seen all 3 of them together. Yeah, no, it was terrible in week 1. So at least they're all playing together now, which is good.
Yeah, the Bears of any team might have been the most preseason-y through the first 3 weeks. Like Waldron was not ready, but it seems like he's adjusted. They've got the run game going. It seems much improved. Over the past couple of weeks
have been better.
Yeah, I'm sorry, if you can't run the ball and you have a rookie quarterback, you're fucked. You got to run. You got to be able to run the ball.
3rd and 12 every drive is not.
Yeah, you got to be able to run the ball. That's why I have some hope for Drake May this week, because I think that the Patriots can't run the ball. Oh, and actually, one last call out: Ladd McConkey. I always want to get excited post bye rookie bump, but brutal matchup against that secondary.
Yeah,
Denver's defense is nice as hell, randomly. Yeah. So, okay, tier 7 here. wide receivers 46 to 45. I've got Michael Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, Xavier Legette, Alan Lazard, Quentin Johnston, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Keon Coleman, Trey Tucker, A.D. Mitchell. AKA, these guys could have big weeks. You should maybe get in front of it and pick them up on the wire right now if you get an extra spot on your bench. That's kind of how I'm approaching this tier. Very excited to see what these New England pass catchers do. Jalen Polk has been getting open at will. If you look at fantasy points, average separation score, Demario Douglas is very interesting as kind of a Wan'Dale Robinson type where he's just getting peppered with targets. So I'm very excited to see how this shakes out. Houston's secondary has been beatable. Their run defense is really good. So it could be forced into more obvious passing situations for Drake May, and I'm curious to know how that impacts Jalen Polk. And then last, A.D. Mitchell, rounding out the last of the top 55. Lots of positive buzz on A.D. Mitchell. I was watching a video of Reggie Wayne talk about A.D. Mitchell. Reggie Wayne's like, this guy's getting open. He's getting open.
Yeah,
like,
he was raving about him.
He was like, this was a steal in the draft. He's getting open. And I do appreciate the positive buzz they're taking because it has been a little rough for Mitchell. Mitchell hasn't looked great. His yards per route run is not good. He's struggled. I not famously, but like on our RTM Twitter account, I said A.D. Mitchell over Brian Thomas, right? And I've said that before the season started, and I look like an idiot through 5 weeks. And I'm willing to admit that. But Mitchell's getting open, and I think Mitchell's close. And I think Mitchell's somebody, if you want to get in front of it now before he has a big pop week and he leads all waiver wires, something you could do. Like guys with Polk and Mitchell, rookies that could have strong seasons towards the end of the year. Like these are guys you want to get in front of. And with Michael Pittman's back injury, I just really think if Mitchell's going to do it, it's going to be soon. He's going to make his move. And I watched a press conference with him. He said, they're like, what do you think some of the challenges are with you? He said, sometimes I put too much hot sauce on my routes when in actuality, I just need to put a little salt. I was dying. I was like, and he had he was talking about how he's like, look, I just like, this is my 5th game. I learned things as a freshman. By the time I was a junior, I didn't know, like I develop, I grow. It's my 5th game. I was like, he had a really good perspective about it. So that it's very anecdotal to talk in that way. It's not like maybe data driven in that sense, but I just do believe in Mitchell's talent. And I think it's coming.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm excited to see him hopefully get a bigger role going forward. 2 thoughts I had on here. Keep an eye on Keon Coleman. Shakir has not been practicing this week, so I think he gets a big time bump if he cannot go for whatever reason. And then I think one guy I'd throw into here too would be Darius Slayton with the
good call
with the Malik Neighbors news, especially against that Cincinnati defense. So yeah, I'm not really starting any of the guys with confidence. Honestly, Slayton would maybe be the guy that I started out of all of these. Maybe even no, I would start Pop Douglas. I lied. Pop Douglas would definitely be my start out of this tier here. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. This is, like you mentioned, these are the guys at the bottom of your bench. Probably picked up some of them on waivers this week and kind of just hanging tight.
Yeah. This is the get in front of it crew. That's how I like to phrase it.
Yeah.
55 wide receivers, Jayden. It's always a blast getting to talk ball with you. This episode's going to come out today on Friday. Look forward to the running back episode in your feed on Saturday. Aiden, anything to say to the listeners before we get out of here?
See you in London. See you in London for the big game.
All right. Go Bears, go Niners, go Jets. Thank you, everybody. Until next time.